You've tuned into the Extreme channel. We have an extreme lifestyle. It is categorized by a bunch of different things, but a big part of it is extreme collectibles, like this $1,000 son of a bitch right here. So before we get started, go ahead and if you haven't already, hit that like button. If you decide you don't like this video, you can have the power to unlike it. It's all in your hands. So hit that thumbs up, hit that like button. Second, let me know what your favorite DC movie of all time is. If you haven't figured out why I'm asking that, it's because I have a DC collectible from a DC movie right here. And I gotta tell you, I'm kind of torn on this. But we're going to take a look at this guy, talk about the background. We're going to review him using the extreme scale like we always do. So let's get to it, shall we? We shall. My name is Mr. X and this is the Extreme Channel. Today we are reviewing 1/3 scale Aquaman from the Justice League movie, manufactured by Prime 1 Studios. What does all that mean? Well, first of all, Aquaman is a character from DC Comics whose power is to control the seas and talk to the aquatic animals and whatnot. It's kind of the Marvel version of Namor. Not Namor, Namor. That's how I pronounce it. And that's right. You ever notice that when you're reading comics all your life and then you actually have to pronounce stuff out loud or video games? You don't know if you're saying it right. But this right here is from the DC movie Justice League. Aquaman, who was played by Jason Momoa. I think that's how it's pronounced. Which, how perfect is that? Someone whose last name is Momoa. And this guy is a badass. He's a badass for multiple reasons. And I'm talking about Jason. First of all, he has a body just like me. Second of all, he is married to Denise Huxtable. How cool is that? And yeah, Denise, she's like a MILF too. She's kind of like a cougar for him. And he's raising Lenny Kravitz's kids. I mean, just what a badass in real life. And we'll talk about the likeness and all that stuff with him. But this is from the Justice League movie that was made a few years ago. I don't even know when anymore. And he was Aquaman. Obviously, there's been an Aquaman movie since. And depending when you're watching this, Aquaman 2 may have come out. But Prime 1 Studios, their big statue manufacturer, their kind of specialty is 1/3 scale DC pieces. 1/3 scale means it's 3 times smaller than what he would be in real life. And as you see, this is a big son of a bitch. That's why you have such a wide view on the camera today. I think everything's showing except the tip. Not the tip. Everything but the tip. Or sometimes just the tip. Just the tip? Yeah. But purchased him, as you guys probably know, I had the whole Justice League 1/3 DC line on order. Here's a picture of them, hopefully. And recently I canceled Superman because I have Hush Superman and I think he's way better. And then I actually canceled Flash too because I always thought his pose was a little boring. But just this week production photos came out and he looked amazeballs. So I'm guessing by the end of the day I'm going to recant that and order him. Because kind of a spoiler, I'm very happy with this piece. Surprisingly happy. Yeah, so we'll talk about that in a second. But just some more information on him. They made 1,300 pieces. 500 were what we call the exclusive, which came with one extra thing. Essentially, it comes with this mother box. And it comes with a $50 additional price tag for this mother box. Whew, I almost dropped that one. So it's $1,000 for this setup, or you could have gotten the collector's edition, which they made 800 of those, which was $50 cheaper, and it does not have the mother box. Make sense? I don't know if you're telling me it does or not anyway. But let's do measurements on this guy before we forget. 15.5 inches wide. Deep, he is about 13 inches. Just like me. And 34 inches tall. Oh, plus his trident, if you have this option displayed, is 37 inches tall. So very, very tall. Most of my... That was probably loud. I have a new microphone set up. Most of my 1/3 pieces actually sit on little risers on the floor because a cabinet just will not display him. But the nice thing is the base doesn't take up a lot of room, which we'll talk about when we get to the design. The box was pretty large. Here's the picture of that. And I never take out the art box because I really don't care for art boxes, but here's the top of it. It was dual layer foam with tape. And inside, here's the first layer. You see his base, a few other pieces. You'll notice Prime 1 isn't using that soft cloth anymore, which is fine by me. I never liked it anyway. Here's the second layer. One interesting thing is they did use the soft cloth on his portrait on this. And then here are all the pieces laid out. And the last thing, it came with standard Prime 1 instructions, which I haven't looked at yet because you know what we say about instructions in the Extreme collection. One day I'm going to hit something. So we're going to jump into the review, and as usual, we're going to use the Extreme Scale. The Extreme Scale is essentially a 1 through 5 rating. Here's a picture of it right here. T is essentially a 1 on your left, and X is a 5. Everything in the middle, 2, 3, 4, figured out. 3, V in the middle, very nice, is a good score. And we're going to look at a whole bunch of different things, starting first with concept. Let's look at the concept of this piece. And again, it follows the entire line. They all have a very similar base, which we're going to look at in about 2 seconds here. Okay, let's look at it. So they all have a very similar base. It has a lot of Justice League kind of Kryptonian tentacles. As if you've seen the review I've done on Cyborg, it's very similar. The only one that's not like this, I believe, is the Batfleck. But the top is a little bit different. You have an aquatic theme going on with seashells and some moisture we're going to talk about. Moist. And he is in his initial costume that he wore both in this movie and the Aquaman movie. And I actually like this costume. I like the fact that the newer costume is more true to the comics, but I think this one looks more badass. He's standing there in a museum pose, which means he's ready to take a picture. And he has a couple different switch outs we're going to talk about, and they tell very similar stories, but they are a little bit different. And on his face, just a very stoic look, very badass. Again, gets that Jason Momoa badassery. One of the things I really like is, in my opinion, I never was a fan of Aquaman in the comics. I thought he was always kind of a pansy, but I like Namor. Isn't that weird? I thought Namor was a badass, but I think he brought the badassery to the character, and I really like and appreciate that. So one of the negatives about the concepts is a lot of people criticize these statues are boring. They're standing there in a dynamic pose, but I like that because they're all supposed to go with each other. And if you put them in a dynamic pose, you know, a fighting or action pose, then you'd have to make them all work together and all work singularly because not everybody buys the whole collection. Some people just pick and choose. So that'd be very difficult to do with an action pose where you can easily do it with this simple museum type pose. I like the fact that it ties into the movie and the other characters on the bottom. You know, it has his symbol, so it signifies it's him. The base is, you know, the ocean, which we're going to look at closer later. Has his original costume, and he's standing there, you know, encompassing that badassery. And there's a few different stories we're going to talk about in design on the switch outs on how it makes it look. So I think the concept's really good, actually. I would give it a W. I think it's well done for a museum pose. I typically don't like museum poses, but this is a 4 out of 5. And now we'll talk about design with this piece. And there's one big issue, so let's talk about the negative right away. As I put them together, one of the things we look at design, does everything fit well? Does it make sense? Was it engineered correctly? And the big issue right here is his feet don't touch the ground all the way. And it's not me. It could be the temperature, it could be the weather, but you see the gaps right here. So I think that's a miss. Granted, you will never be looking at this, but if I resell this someday, sometimes you have people who are really, really, really anal in particular, and they will freak out if they see this. Otherwise, it went together really easy. You saw all the different pieces to it. One of the things in the design, I like they offered the mother box, and I know they offer it with Flash, and I'm not sure which other one, because I think there's 3 of them. I know it's not Cyborg. I don't think it's Superman. I could be wrong. I don't think it's Wonder Woman, so yeah. Someone tell me what the other mother box comes with. But there's no place to put this, so I don't like that actually. I wish there could have been. I don't know how they could have done it, so I hate to criticize something without giving a suggestion. And this is really heavy, by the way. And so is Aquaman. I mean, you'd expect a 1/3 piece to be heavy, but typically the characters are a little lighter and the bases are really heavy. He's extremely heavy as well. Some other design things going on. First, he has some switch outs. So on his left arm, he can hold his trident straight up and down, which initially this is the pose I thought I would have him in. Or he can hold it, his arm and his hand switch out to the back. And same thing with the right arm. First is a closed fist down, kind of badass, like he just stomped the trident down. And I thought this was the pose I would put him in. Or he has his hand out like, come on, bitch. And I thought that looked pretty stupid. Until I put them together. I actually like both of them. And obviously you can mix them up as well. But here's kind of a side-by-side of both of them together. Like I said, both look really good. I was very surprised by that. I also think in design, this is where likeness of the character comes into play, and it's not necessarily, obviously paint and sculpt is tied into that. But let's take a closer look at his portrait here, and we'll do a lot more close-ups with paint and sculpt. But is this Jason Momoa? So here's some side-by-side pictures. To me, it's really similar to the uncowled portrait of Batfleck. I didn't know if I was going to say Batfleck or Ben Affleck. But I think it's almost there, but it's a miss. And when I saw pictures of Henry Cavill, I think it was the exact same way. I think they got the portrait correct for The Flash, and I know they did for Cyborg. Wonder Woman, I'm waiting to see some production photos for Gal. So I think with the design, the likeness is almost there, but they did miss it. But I think it's close enough too. But there's a whole train of thought on that. This is a $1,000 statue. It needs to be spot on. But so I think the design isn't great. I think it's good. It fit together really well. Like I said, I like a lot of things they tied in the base and some issues on where do you put this. So I'm actually kind of on the fence. I'm going to give the design a U, which I didn't think I would. It's a 2 out of 5, but with the foot issue, with I don't know where to put the mother box, with the fact that they missed the likeness on him, I'm going to give the design aspect a U. I think those were some critical, important aspects, and they missed it. The huge great thing I think that they do have going for the design is the fact that the switch outs look great. So let's talk about the paint and sculpt, and we're going to talk about them at the same time, going from top to bottom like she likes it. Or sorry, bottom to top is the way she likes it. And I think I said that exact same joke in another review. Maybe you didn't watch it. But did you wonder if your video froze right there? I just like to mess with you guys sometimes. But we'll talk about the paint and sculpt together as we go up, and then we'll rate them afterwards separately. And as I'm looking at this, I'm just really taking this in. I really do like it. I like it a lot. I really wish they would replace the entire portrait. And on a side note, so Queen Studios at New York Comic Con, they revealed their half-scale piece in the newer costume, which looked great, by the way, but it didn't have the portrait. Maybe his portrait's really hard to do. I don't know. But let's look at the mother box first. It's the same on all 6 sides, and it's kind of this weird-ass, and I don't know how movie accurate this is, almost looks like an alien type thing, but then as you look at these striations coming into the front of it, it reminds me of seashells and things of that nature, because I know this is the Atlantean mother box. But it's really weird and cool looking. I like it. I think there's a lot of detail in it. I think even on the corners here, it almost looks like some seashells have hooked it together. I like the different colors they used. It's not fancy. It looks like it's been underwater for a long time. Really, really cool. And moving to his base, as I said, there's a lot of similarities to Cyborg and what I assume the other characters as well that are coming out later. The big difference is you have the Aquaman symbol right on the front, but it's this metallic hint to it with some greens and blacks mixed in, these tentacles coming up. It looks really cool. I hate how tall it is, which I think is another negative on the design, so that makes me feel better about giving it a U. The height is just too much. 37 inches with the staff. There's nowhere you can display them. But on the sides, almost these tubes, kind of reminds me of a submarine a little bit, like that opening scene when he rescues people from the submarine. I think that's actually an Aquaman, not Justice League, but still. So I like the base. It snaps, it pops. Good sculpt, good paint, but it's even better on top. So it's this ocean floor with some seashells and clams and starfish, and it has this clear, moist resin effect. Makes it look really cool, almost like he made this rise out of the water. I think they did a great job. The colors in there just pop. Looks like a real ocean floor. And then moving on to his armor, you're going to see a lot of the same. A lot of it has these triangular and different shaped designs and gold on top of this black inlay. But starting at his boots here, they're a little bit different gold color. And they're interesting because it's kind of like flaps that are folded over. And why would he need boots in the ocean? But that's not for me to ask, I guess. They're kind of plain, but it's this weird gold copper metallic color. And I assume it's very movie accurate. Otherwise, DC would not have signed off on it, or whoever produced that movie, I can't remember. But, they're standard boots, nothing to get crazy about. But then moving up, you see what I was talking about with his armor. You got these triangles and these plates around his boots protecting him. And they're almost layered on there, kind of neat. And the colors, they're, like I said, it has to be accurate to the movie, but there's kind of these different blends of golds and blacks to mix it up a little bit. And as you get, he has knee pads like every superhero because apparently they suck a lot of dick. And yeah, I said it. Then moving up even farther, you have these green plates. And I really like this because it mixes up the statue. It doesn't make it as plain and boring. And it's kind of the shiny green, and it reflects really well. It really reminds me of his new costume. Then his package, huge package. Lisa Bonet must be happy. But let's switch around to his ass here. Again, that must be uncomfortable to sit with this costume, but he's an Atlantean or half Atlantean, so maybe he doesn't have as much feeling in his ass as we do when we sit on weird things. But good, different striations and colors and direction. A lot of detail and time went into this, and on the back of his belt he has the Aquaman symbol, and you'll see that same thing on his front. Then moving up, a little bit more variation in the costume. Again, things going in different directions. Kind of this, almost where it may open and close on the front, this black two lines going down the middle. And while you can't see his muscles, it's built around his muscles, so his pecs are really big, which gives some definition to the character, because I think this was a tighter suit, but it's an armored suit, so it's always hard to determine how you're going to do that on some anatomy. And then here's his shoulder pads, again, more armor, kind of layered, just like his boots, with some of the symbols all over them. And as you move down his arms, this is where it really looks scaly, like a fish. And that's, I think, the effect they were trying to go for. And I think they pulled it off really well. Looks good. And one thing I really like is on his gauntlets, he has kind of these Batman-like fins. Would be badass to stab someone. And as he moves down, his hands almost look like these could be armor or golden cloth wraps, either one. It looks really good. They use this translucent resin they've been using on this whole line on his skin. And sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. I think I like this because it almost adds a moist effect to it. And, you think of him as being a little bit wet. They didn't add a lot of moisture and water to him. So that's what it more symbolizes. The base was maybe raised out of the water, that he hasn't been in the water. But good detail in his hands. Then here's his trident. Looks cool. I think it's very movie accurate. It's not the new one where he can actually control everything in the sea. So far, I think the paint and sculpt is just fantastic. And now we're going to move on to the portrait where it's not as good. Starting with his hair. Parts of his hair look great. It looks like he's been in the water. Almost looks like dreadlocks in a way. Especially like in the middle of his hair where it's all tangled and bunched together. And it's a mix between a different color of gold so it doesn't blend in too much with the suit. But I think they should have contrasted it a little more. And then look at how it bunches up at the bottom. This is kind of a mess. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look like real hair anymore. I think that's a miss. It's also too thick, in my opinion. His hair was never this thick when it was wet. So let's look at his portrait here. This doesn't look as translucent or that translucent resiny as the other, as his hands do or some of the other portraits. But very stoic look. I think they could use some more definition in his forehead, some more lines. Not to make him mad, but his forehead is just huge, and I don't know if it's like that in real life, but you do see some detail like some moles. His eyebrows, they could have sculpted that a little bit better. It's not defined very well. But like, check out his beard. That is defined really, really well. Lots of hairs in there, and it's really neat, which is weird because it's so neat and combed where his hair isn't. And then he didn't shave very well. On the side of his face, on his right side, your left, he has all these little hairs coming out, which I don't understand the concept behind that. It's just strange. Lips pursed together, they look good. His eyes, of course, in the movie, he wears the contact lenses to give it kind of that weird Atlantean eye look. I don't like them. There's something missing on them. I don't know what it is. It also feels like his head above his eyes is really popping out way over his eyes. I think that's a miss. I don't know if the character is like that. So overall, I think paint is really good on this piece. I think they did a good job. You didn't have to do necessarily a lot. I mean, it's, you know, the base and golds and browns, but I think the paint for sure is a W, a 4 out of 5. I think Prime 1 usually knocks it out of the park with paint and sculpt. W, rail on the paint, well done. Sculpt, I think the base is amazing. I think his suit is very good. I think his portrait is not good. So if I had to rank them, I would be a X, so 5, 3 to 4, so a T to W, and then his head would be U for ugly. It's not bad, but I think it's just a miss, especially with the hair and some of the stuff I pointed out. So we're going to give him an average, right in the middle, a V for sculpt, very nice. And I think when looking at this, I'm kind of comparing it to, you know, I have the Batman, I have the Cyborg, I may or may not get the Flash, I'm getting the Wonder Woman. I think overall it falls in the same. It's V, very nice, which is a good score. I like a lot of the stuff they did on here, especially the switch outs. I just love those switch outs, which I didn't think I would. So if you haven't put in your favorite DC movie yet, go ahead and do that. Obviously, mine is The Dark Knight. I think that can't be beat. Followed closely, my second one is actually the original 89 Batman with Jack Nicholson, which I don't know when this is airing, but I'm getting some custom Jack Nicholson statues in. Nicholson? Nichols? Jack Nichols? Nicholson. Yeah. So put in your favorite movie. Also let me know, how would you display him? Would you do it with the trident up or the trident back? And so I'm going to do them one of two ways. Either the trident up here with this fist, or the trident back with the open hand where he's getting some. So let me know what you think I should do. And part of it might be how he's going to hit the other characters where he's displayed at too. So, but I really appreciate you guys watching. Again, please hit that like button if you have not. And I will see you tomorrow. Take care.